The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The air was filled with the scent of lilies, the soft hum of a string quartet, and the hushed whispers of guests admiring the grand ballroom. I stood there in my white lace gown, feeling like I had finally found the place where I belonged. I had been with David for 5 years, and through his father's illness and the subsequent struggle to keep their family estate afloat, I was the one who stayed up late into the night. I was the one who balanced the ledgers, handled the contractors, and quietly moved my own savings into the business account to ensure the lights stayed on. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I thought we were a team. During the reception, while David was busy greeting a group of old college friends, his mother, Beatrice, approached me. She looked regal in her silk gown, a glass of champagne held delicately in her hand. She gestured for me to step into a quiet alcove near the garden doors. I expected a warm welcome, or perhaps a word of thanks for how I'd helped the family during the lean years. Instead, she leaned in, her voice a sharp, cold whisper that cut through the festive music. "Don't get too comfortable in that dress, Elena," she said, her eyes gleaming with a casual cruelty I hadn't seen before. "You might have a ring on your finger, but you'll never be part of this family. You're a convenience, a placeholder, until David realizes he deserves someone from our world. You're just the help we decided to let sit at the high table for a night." The room went silent in my head. Even the ticking of the clock in the hallway sounded too loud. I stared at her, trying to process what I just heard. She smiled then, a rehearsed empty smile, and patted my arm before walking back to the crowd. Something in me cracked quietly but cleanly. It wasn't just about the insult, it was about being erased from the story I had helped write. Years of loyalty, of helping when no one else would, were dismissed in a single breath. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I just looked at her as she laughed with her sisters, memorizing the calm certainty on her face. The decision was already made in her mind. My feelings were an afterthought, and my contributions were invisible. I realized then that I had been auditioning for a family that never planned to cast me. Hey, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the bell. Your support means everything and helps me keep creating. Thank you so much. That night, after the guests had cleared out and the flowers began to wilt, I sat in the quiet of our new home. David found me staring out the window. I told him exactly what his mother said. I expected him to defend her or tell me I was being dramatic, but he didn't. He sat down beside me, his face pale. He told me that his mother had been pressuring him for months to sign a new estate agreement, one that would ensure all the family assets, including the house I had spent my own money to save, would remain under her sole control, eventually passing to his sister's children, bypassing me entirely. "She thinks you're just a temporary fixture," David whispered, looking at his hands. "She told me that if I didn't sign it, she'd make things difficult for us." I looked at David and felt a strange calm. I realized that Beatrice's arrogance was built on a foundation she didn't realize I controlled. Years ago, when the estate was facing a tax lien and David's father was too ill to manage things, I was the one who negotiated the restructuring. Because my credit was the only one in good standing and my funds were the ones being injected, my lawyer at the time had insisted on a very specific clause. The primary residence and a significant portion of the family land weren't just in the family. They were held in a trust that required my signature for any transfer of ownership or change in inheritance structure. Beatrice thought she was the queen of the manor, but she was living in a house built on my silence. "We aren't signing her agreement," I told David. "We're writing our own." The next 3 weeks were a blur of quiet focus. I didn't burn with rage. I organized. I gathered every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, and every receipt for the renovations I had paid for. Those weren't memories anymore. They were receipts. I met with a lawyer, a sharp woman who didn't interrupt as I explained the history of the property and the verbal promises Beatrice had made and then broken. We drafted a new, comprehensive estate plan. It wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity and protection. We moved the property into a private trust where David and I were the sole trustees. We structured the will to ensure that the family legacy was protected from the very person who claimed to be its guardian, but was actually its greatest threat. David was fully on board. He was tired of being manipulated by his mother's traditions, which were really just tools for control. Beatrice, unaware of our moves, called for a meeting at the family lawyer's office a month later. She arrived looking smug, carrying a folder of her own. She thought she was there to finalize the documents that would legally sideline me forever. She sat across from us, her sister and David's sister flanking her like a royal court. "Let's get this over with," Beatrice said, sliding a pen toward David. "We need to ensure the family heritage is secure. Elena, you can wait in the lobby if you'd like. This is a private family matter." I stayed in my seat. "Actually, Beatrice, I think you should read our documents first." I slid our folder across the mahogany table. Our lawyer began to speak, her voice calm and professional. She laid out the facts, the tax liens I had cleared, the joint ownership structure Beatrice had conveniently forgotten, and the new trust that had already been finalized and recorded. As Beatrice flipped through the pages, her face drained of color. The smug smile froze, then crumbled. She reached the page that detailed the ownership of the main estate, the house she currently lived in. The realization hit her like a physical weight. Because she had defaulted on the maintenance and taxes years ago, and I had settled them under a specific legal agreement, she no longer had the unilateral power to dictate the will or the property's future. This is impossible," she stammered, her voice shaking. "You can't do this. This is my home." "It's a house, Beatrice," I said quietly, meeting her eyes. "And like you said at the wedding, I'm not part of the family, right? So I'm treating this like a business arrangement. Since I'm the one who ensured this house still exists, I'm the one who decides its future. You are welcome to stay there, of course, but the entitlement ends today." Her face at that moment said it all. It wasn't just shock. It was the look of someone who realized they had been standing on the shoulders of the person they were trying to crush. Her sisters looked away, embarrassed, and David's sister suddenly found her phone very interesting. The world Beatrice thought she belonged to was shifting beneath her feet. She tried to shout, tried to call me ungrateful and a gold digger, but the lawyer quietly reminded her that every cent of the gold in this family for the last 5 years had come from my career and my savings. The room went cold. Beatrice looked at David, searching for the old obedience, but he just looked at her with a tired, disappointed expression. "Elena didn't do this to hurt you, Mom," David said. "She did it because you made it clear that fairness wasn't an option. You wanted to make her a ghost in this family. You didn't realize ghosts can't sign checks." We walked out of that office into the bright afternoon sun. Beatrice's frantic calls started 10 minutes later, then the texts from her sisters accusing me of ruining the family's peace. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had spent years being the quiet one who managed everything, the one who swallowed her pride to keep the peace. I realized then that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice. In the weeks that followed, the dynamic shifted permanently. Beatrice was forced to accept the new terms. She became a lot quieter at Sunday dinners when she was invited. She finally understood that love isn't built on taking advantage of someone's silence. I didn't win because I took her house. I won because I reclaimed myself. I stopped begging for a seat at a table that didn't want me and built a table of my own. As for Beatrice, she still lives in the big house, but she knows exactly whose name is on the foundation. If this story hit home, share it. Some wounds don't need revenge, they just need distance and growth. Remember, the best way to answer those who try to erase you isn't through anger, but through the life you build without their approval. Keep building.